Up, up, up. Welcome to Vintage Garage. We have another full show today. First we'll start the rebuild of the motor for the Lola T492. Last week we pulled the motor out of the car. This week we'll disassemble it, see what's wrong with it, and order the parts we need to fix it. After that we'll take a field trip to Silver Spring Speedway for the ARDC midget races. That should be a lot of fun. Lastly, we'll build a new Incar video system to try to improve the quality of our Incar video for the show. So stay tuned, we have a lot to do this week. Glad you're here. The first step in the disassembly of the motor in the Lola T492 is the removal of the oil pan. There are perhaps 24 small bolts all around the edge of it that need to be unscrewed. We also need to remove the breather hose that runs from the oil pan up to the front of the block. Once all of the bolts in the pan have been removed, we can carefully lower it and set it aside. We use the big breaker bar to loosen the head bolts on the motor. And then the small butterfly ratchet to unscrew them. The head bolts have a recessed star pattern in the head of each bolt, and we use this special tool which fits the pattern exactly. After we've removed all of the head bolts, we can remove the lifting chain. Then we carefully lift the head off the motor and set it aside. We then lay the motor on its side and use the breaker bar to gently loosen the rod bolts. Using a 3/8 ratchet, we carefully remove the rod bolts and then lightly tap on the rod cap with a brass hammer to remove the cap. The rod bearings appear to be in great shape, but we'll put in new ones when we assemble the motor. Using the wooden handle of the brass hammer, we gently push the connecting rod and piston out of the top of the block. We see right away what's causing the motor to be down on horsepower and the source of the blow-by that's causing our oil catch tank to fill on every session. The top piston ring is broken. We'll set the piston aside along with the other half of the bearing shell. We repeat the process on the next piston and find that the top piston ring is broken on that piston as well. The top rings are broken on the other two pistons as well. While we have the motor apart, we'll take a look at the main bearings as well. Again, we'll use the breaker bar to loosen the main bolts and the ratchet to remove them. We tap on the main cap lightly with the brass hammer to loosen it up. And then we can remove it and inspect the main bearing. The bearing shell appears to be in good shape, but we can see that it no longer fits tightly in the cap. We think that the bearing shell probably got too hot sometime during its lifetime. All of the other main bearings are in a similar condition. After our disassembly and inspection, we decide that all we need to do to the motor is to put in new piston rings and replace the rod and main bearings. We'll also have to buy a gasket set. Everything else is in good shape. We also remove the clutch and flywheel to inspect them. There's not much more we can do on the Lola right now until the parts arrive, so we'll take a break and head up to Silver Spring Speedway in Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania. The ARDC midgets are in town tonight. It should be a lot of fun. When we get to Silver Spring Speedway, we see that the super sportsmen are on the track for their hot lap warm-up. The ARDC midgets are staged in the back pit area and take to the track at the completion of the sportsman warm-ups. First out is Fred Schell in the number 75, followed by Brian Kobolars in the number 49. The number 1 of Ray Bull is rolled out on the track as the push trucks start the midgets. The water truck is still circulating, working the track into shape. After the trucks leave the track, the flagmen give the signal to speed it up, and then the green is out for the first set of ARDC warm-up hot laps. After 5 laps of warm-ups, the cars come in as the next batch of midgets stage in the pits. There's a large field of midgets here tonight. This is one of our favorite classes of oval racing cars. First out is the number 42W of Walt Sterling, followed by the number 33 of Lou Blair. After the second warm-up, the midgets leave the track. Let's walk around and have a look at them. The number 49 is the Ford engine Boxer of Brian Kobelart's. The number 70 is the VW-powered Challenger of Fremont Dickerman. The number 72 Garrity Stealth of Kathy Kurtz Wooden Fire, and the crew is hard at work troubleshooting it. Lou Blair and his crew check over the number 33, a Garrity-powered Blair chassis.
Put some leverage on that there.
The number 4 Brayton Stealth of Mark Freeland is ready to go. The crew of the white number 25 has decided to change gear ratios in their car.
Let me see them gears. Which one? The ones we're trying to get on.
This is the Garrity Stealth of Mark Daly. And this is the number 55 Garrity Ellis of Steve Craig. Over at the number 25 Snyder Beast of Randy Mosteller, the crew is grooving the outside edge of the rear tire for a better bite in the soft track. The number 57 Garrity D&G of Mike Krause is ready to go. At the Arias powered Stealth of Scott Zipp, the crew is making a last-minute fix. The number 15 Scat V4 Challenger of Chris Mulray is ready to go. Next to him, Ray Bull, last year's ARDC champion in the number 1 Bradenton Beast, is checking over his car. The number 6 is the Garrity-powered car of Ed Steinley Jr. This is the number 28 Chevy 2 Stealth of Brian Succi. There's a lull in the action, and we have time to interview Fred Schell, one of our favorite drivers.
My name's Fred Schell from Phoenixville, Pennsylvania. This car has a Pontiac motor, which was originally in the Pontiac Fiero. This is an aluminum version of it. Originally it was 153 cubic inch. We stroked this out to 166 cubic inch. We lay it over on 45 degrees. It's fuel injected with alcohol, dry sump oil with a 4-stage oil pump. The front suspension is coil-over shocks. In the rear end of the car, we have a winner's rear end with the quick change gears. And tonight here we're running a 6-14 gear ratio. On the rear end, we have torsion bar suspension with shock on the side.
As the sun starts to go down, the midgets come out for their first heat race of the evening. They look well lined up on the pace lap, and the lights are out. We'll have a start this time. Brian Kobelart's is up front and leads the heat from start to finish, with Mark Daly second, Walt Steerley third, and Fred Schell fourth. The second heat for the ARDC midgets is next on the card. Kathy Kurtz is still unable to get the number 72 Garrity Stealth to fire. The cars are lined up well, and the lights are off on the pace lap. We'll have a start this time. takes the lead and wins the heat, followed by Mark Freeland, Dwayne Mosteller, and Steve Buckwalter. Back in the pits, the crew of the number 72 continues to work on getting the motor in the car to fire. Finally, they find the problem: a broken rotor in the magneto. Out on the track, the Super Sportsman heats are continuing as a steady rain begins to fall. Finally, the races are stopped and the features are postponed on account of rain. It's now Sunday and we have time for one more project this week. We want to build a new Incar video system. At Sebring, where the track was so rough, we got almost no in-car video. We always mount the video camera directly on the car, and the body of the camera bounces so much that the tape head comes off the tape, and we got almost continuous cutouts. Now we're going to build an improved system with a remote camera so we can cushion the tape drive. It should work a lot better. At the heart of our new in-car camera system is this Canon ZR-20 digital palm quarter. It has one important feature that wasn't present in the Panasonic camera that we were using, and that is the audio-visual port on the side is both an AV out and AV in port. It allows for a remote camera to be plugged into the AV port. All we're going to use is the tape drive from the camera. The second most important part of the project is this small lipstick cam that we bought at helmetcam.com. It comes with a remote camera. It has a connection that we're going to connect to the AV port on the tape recorder. It also has a remote microphone that we'll be able to bury down in the car somewhere so it's out of the wind and we'll be able to get good motor noise. And it has a connection for a 12-volt power supply. We also bought this rather large rechargeable 12-volt battery at Radio Shack, and we think this battery has more than enough power to run both the tape drive and the lipstick cam for more than an hour. We're going to build our camera body out of this PVC pipe tube that we got at Home Depot. In addition, we have a couple of pieces of scrap foam, and we're going to use those when it comes time to mount the camera. In the end, we're going to put the tape drive in the foam and hope that the foam provides some shock protection as the car bounces up and down. We also bought a 43mm UV filter, and we found that it's exactly the right size to thread into the end of the pipe tee. We really got lucky on that. We want to put a filter ahead of our lipstick cam because what we found with our regular camera was that the lens on the camera is continually getting beat up by rocks and mud and dirt and various other things. So by mounting our camera inside of this body and putting the filter ahead of it, we're planning that the filter is all that's going to get beat up and we'll be able to throw the filter away. The filters only cost about $10 and we bought several. Since we're using a standard 43mm filter, we can also put a 43mm lens cap over the filter to complete the project. That'll dress it up nicely. We have a few other small parts which we'll cover as we get to it, but let's get started building the camera. We've now powered up the lipstick cam and plugged it into the AV port on the palm quarter. We've got the monitor here so you can see it, and it illustrates our first problem. The lipstick cam can be mounted at any angle. It's free to rotate around, and we need to mount the lipstick cam so that our scene is exactly level. That's our first challenge. We'll start our project by cleaning up our pipe tee with a little bit of lacquer thinner. It has the UPC code on it. We want to get that off to neaten up the job a little bit. Over at the drill press, we drill a 1/4-inch hole in the center of a PVC pipe end. We'll put a mounting bolt in there to hold the lipstick cam. While we're at it, we need to chamfer the hole to clear the mounting boss on the cam. The pipe end has a convex face and we need to flatten it so it will fit flush on the face of the I/O port camera mount. Using the bandsaw, we cut a slot in the pipe end to provide clearance for the wires. At one side of the pipe end, we'll drill a smaller second hole. We'll tap this hole with 1/4 threads. We'll use this hole to mount the PVC pipe to the camera mount on the car. Lastly, we cut the side of the pipe tee off and shorten the length of it. We then use the belt sander to neaten up the job. Finally, after all the machining, what we're left with is what remains of the T and our back plug. We sanded it to be slightly smaller in diameter so that it would fit nicely. We'll coat the inside of the main camera body first. We want this at somewhat of an angle, but we still want to be able to get our wire in. So we'll put it in exactly like that. After study, we think that the design can be improved by putting a 1/4 helicoil into the mounting thread area of the camera body. By putting a steel insert in there, we'll have steel against steel instead of steel against plastic. And we think the thread will last a lot longer. I'm going to cut a very narrow strip of foam material that came in the box for one of the parts we ordered. Put a little dab of trim cement on the lipstick cam to keep it centered. I need a screwdriver to carefully get all the foam down. Now around to the back, we're just going to put a regular 1/4 bolt with a flat washer on it, and we'll thread that into the back of the lipstick cam to hold it firmly in place. And we'll very carefully screw the UV filter into the end of it, and then we'll put our lens cap on it to keep it nice and protected and clean. Now let's take it over to the Lola T492, mount it up on the I/O port camera mount, and see how it's going to work. We're now over at the Lola T492, and I'm going to change the orientation of the camera mount to be vertical. Then we're going to take our camera body that we just got through making, and we'll screw it onto the I/O port camera mount in a vertical position. Now I see as we rotate the camera body, we can get the horizon level. And then we can clamp it down. That looks pretty level, just like that. We'll do a final level on it when we get the car on the track and we can see the horizon in the distance. We'll finish the job by putting a Vintage Garage decal on there so that when people see it, they'll know we're filming the TV show. And we're done. That came out great. That's it for this week at Vintage Garage. We had a great week and got a lot accomplished. First, we got a good start on the rebuild of the motor for the Lola T492. The trip to Silver Spring Speedway was also a lot of fun. Unfortunately, once again we had rain. Lastly, we built a new Incar video system. We're looking forward to testing it at Mosport in 2 weeks. Next week, we have another full show. First, we'll assemble the motor in the Lola T492, installing our new parts as we go, and then we'll install the motor in the car, finishing the job. Then we'll follow the ARDC midgets up to Williams Grove Speedway to try again to see them race, and we hope for better weather. Lastly, we'll make a small frame repair on the Lola T492. It will give us a chance to use our jet flux system again. So until next time, thanks for coming. Keep the shiny side up. We'll see you next week. If you'd like more information about any of the projects we've worked on today, please visit our website at www.vintagegarage.com. There's a link to our email address on the website. Please email us. We'd like to hear from you. Till next time, keep the shiny side up. Thanks for coming. See you next week.